So I've been making lo-fi music for around 6 years now, and back in 2019 I had the fortunate opportunity to work with Chilled Cow, now known as Lo-Fi Girl, on their first ever compilation 1am study sessions, and I was insanely excited at the time, but I didn't realise that that would be what kickstarts my career in the music industry. Since then I've been fortunate enough to work with them on many different projects and collaborations over the years, and I'm super excited to announce that on the 20th of November my latest Lo-Fi Girl album called Golden Age will be released. It's a project full of some of my favourite tracks that I've ever written. It's got an array of different influences and sounds and inspirations on this project, and in this video I thought it would be a great opportunity to break down one of my favourite tracks from the album, which you can hear in the background now, called Fragments of Paradise. It's a more moody cinematic track with lots of different textures and layers, bringing the whole thing to life. So I'll go into how I wrote the track and some of the VSTs and sounds that I used to create it. I've also got another interesting project that I want to kick off soon, where I'm looking to work with as many of you as possible on a collaborative album, from as many different genres and styles as possible coming together to make a sort of more lo-fi hip-hop focused album. It would also be great if you're comfortable being on camera a little bit just to talk about the project in the video, but that's not essential at all. So if you're interested, please drop collab bro in the comments, as well as a little bit about your music background, and I'll be messaging everyone with more information soon. Also, big thanks to DistroKid for sponsoring this video. They've been a huge supporter of the channel for a long time, so I'll be talking a little bit about them as well in the video. But for now, here is the track breakdown. So there's a lot of stacking in this track, using various VSTs, playing the same things or playing different things to complement each other, and a lot of different effects like granular synthesis, various reverbs, etc. So I'll try and link everything I use in the description down below. But yeah, I started off the track with a sort of drone notes. The track is 55 BPM, it's in F major or D minor, and it's in 4/4 time. And I started off playing a 3-note drone on various different pianos with various different effects that play throughout the whole track and just acts as a sort of grounding. As we layer more to build the track, you can drop it all away and you still got that drone note, just sort of keeping the track flowing. So this is the drone, and it plays throughout the track, playing the notes A, D, F, D in a loop, and there's 3 pianos playing these sounds in total. So we've got the Ulfa Arnold's grand piano, which is one that I use a lot on this album, and I have been the past sort of year. Great warm piano sound that just adds a lot of warmth and character to the track. I layered that in with Original's Firewood piano. This is a sort of a Spitfire Audio Original Series VST, and they've got a lot of pad textures in it, so I use it a lot in the background just to bulk up the track a bit. So this is just sort of essentially a pad that's playing behind the main piano. And then finally, one again that I like to use a lot is the Leco VST. This adds a sort of half speed crunchiness to the top end, so I cut the lows. I don't want any of the muddiness in the low end. I use brush free to get rid of some of the excess noise, and I layer that in to add a sort of top end crunch to the drone. And on the drone bus, I'm using Valhalla Shimmer for the real sort of atmospheric shimmer delay. And I'm also using Portal, the grain swells preset, which is just adding a bit of that reverse delay texture to the drone. Of course, on top of that, I've got a nice warm atmospheric sample, and then I layer in the main piano. So this is playing quite a simple, essentially 2-chord loop, and again I'm using the Felt Grand piano by Spitfire Audio, and again I'm layering it with Leco. And another key feature of the intro and the whole track really is this sort of warm lap steel swell. I think one of the key features of the lap steel is the fact that you're getting that smooth transition from note to note, which if you haven't got a lap steel, you can't play the lap steel. There are VSTs like Omnisphere which have got lap steel sounds in them, or even using other synth sounds, but using the pitch modulation wheel to get that slow rise from note to note, can get a very similar effect. So on top of the lap steel, I've got a Lux, which is a plugin that I've been using a lot recently. It's by Clipground Audio. It's essentially compression and saturation. Very simple interface, very few settings, but adds a great sort of warmth and body to the compression. For reverb, first off, I'm using a Spaced Out, which again, I use a lot of. It's a great ambient sort of floaty reverb sound. I've then got a Portal on there as well, using the Sleep Cycle preset to add a bit of this sort of ambient shimmer to the lap steel. And finally, I've got this Particle Reverb plugin, which is a Max for Live device, which I'll link in the description down below, It creates loads of reverb particles, essentially like grainy sort of reverb texture, which is super sort of washed out and warm. There's also a vocal pad that layers in with the intro. Sounds like this. This is the voice crease patch from Slate & Aura's Ash plugin. There's loads of similar sounds that you can get with various of the sort of $30 Spotify audio plugins. I've got similar sounds in my new sample pack with Lofi built-in, and you can get similar sounds with like choir plugins and stuff like that as well. But what I'm doing to this is I'm essentially playing the same chords as the main track. I've cut the lows here with an EQ8. I'm using Spaced Out for some nice shimmery reverb. Again, Portal. Spaced Out and Portal feature on almost all of the tracks. This is using the default Portal preset, which is just a sort of choppy sound. You can get the same effect with automation or using auto filtering and stuff like that. And they've also got a width delay, so it's just a standard Ableton delay. You can get a similar effect in any DAW, but I'm essentially delaying the left and the right slightly out of whack with 100% on the dry wet scale. So the left is being played slightly after the right, which gives a nice width feel to it. But quickly before I show you the secret sauce that I used to finish this track, a lot of people have been asking me how to get onto these big labels like Lo-Fi Girl, Chill Hop, Chill Beats, College Music, and so on. And one thing I noticed when I start looking at their social medias and their Spotify's is that they've released very little to no music on Spotify, and they don't have much of an online presence. And I think the main thing you need to do in this situation is build your online presence and show that you can naturally and organically get plays and streams on Spotify and Apple Music independently first, to get the attention of some of these labels. So to get your music on these websites, you need to use a distributor, and easily the most popular distributor in the lo-fi scene and in most independent music scenes is DistroKid, for many great reasons. So I've been using DistroKid since I started releasing music on Spotify back in 2019, after I jumped over from the SoundCloud days, and they have been a fantastic distributor to use. There's various plans you can go for, but the one I suggest most people use is the one that I have, which is the Musician Plus plan. So the total cost is $40 per year, and for that they won't take any of your royalties. There is a more budget-friendly option at $23 per year, but the Musician Plus plan is vital because it lets you pick your release date. So you can plan all your promotions for a specific date, and it also means you can pitch your track to Spotify editorials, which is fantastic if you land on a big editorial, but also getting on the algorithmic playlists as well, which is a super essential way to start to build your audience organically and get more consistent streams for your indie releases. Plus, when it comes to promotion, DistroKid has got you covered with an array of free tools that come with all the plans. One that is super important at the minute is the ability to create a Spotify canvas from your cover art. Spotify canvas is essentially the moving image that plays behind tracks on Spotify. And if you're not doing this on every track, you're definitely missing out, because it's a feature that Spotify has implemented and it's one that they want to push. So if there's a track with and without it, they're going to push the one with it. You can also create loads of professional looking promotion cards that you can use on your social media, like so, with an array of different options and all of the different platforms that it's available on. You can use their custom video creation tool for more free social media promotion content, and you can create amazing landing pages that look professional, are super quick, and have great response. So if you're interested in signing up, hit the link in the description down below for 7% off your first year's membership. Huge thanks to DistroKid for being a long-time sponsor of the channel. It's a service that I use regularly, and I would highly recommend you checking out too. If you want more information about promoting indie releases, do let me know in the comments down below, and I can do a sort of breakdown of how I go about doing that. But for now, back into the video. So next up, time to add a little bit of arcade texture, which is more a sort of articulated sounds. So I've freezed and flattened this just so I can rearrange some of the timing, cut a lot of the lows, and then I've used a Lux and also filter to cut a bit of the high end, and again Portal and Spaced Out for some nice ambient warmth. I've also used various other vocal layering, so when the drums kick in, I also get this vocal bus, which adds a nice airy, breathy texture to the track. So this is 3 different sounds. One is from the Yair Elzar Glotman Spitfire Audio VST $30 plugin with some great vocal textures. That's sort of panned left. Then panned right, we've got Oliver Patrice Pool Project VST, which is another Spitfire plugin. More amazing vocal textures. They're both around $30. I'd highly recommend checking them out. So next up, I add a sort of lead on the piano, which is again the same piano as the main chord progression, but this one's got a little bit of Valhalla shimmer on there just to give it a more ambient sound, and I move the panning of them from left to right slowly throughout the track just to give it a bit of movement. And finally we add in the brass textures. So these are a mix of sounds from the Session Horns Pro by Native Instruments, using the flugelhorn and the muted trumpet. And also I used some of these articulations that I recorded which didn't quite sound right, and I sent them to a session musician to record them with real instruments and blended that in with these sort of more fake textures that you get from the native instruments. So for these sounds, I cut a lot of the highs, so it was a more muffled, muted sound that blended into the mix a little bit better. I used some auto panning to move the panning from left to right as the track progresses, as well as some spaced out reverb for that lush, ambient, big reverb feel. Finally, Radiator by Sound Toys for the saturation. So we also have a bit of a break around the middle of the track where the piano gets simplified a little bit. We're not playing the main riff that you hear from the start. Of course, we've still got the drone note in the background. We've still got the vocals, the lap steel textures, and some of the brass additions. And this coincides with the drums dropping out. So now moving on to the drums, which I'm super happy with. They had a sort of quite a slow but punchy sound to them, which I think worked really well in the context of the track. So for the kick, I don't usually do much to my kick processing. I just use the ML Lo-Fi Kick 1 from my organic Lo-Fi hip hop sample pack, which I'd already sort of done some processing to for the pack. So this one just fits straight in. And that's the kick that you hear throughout the track. And everything else I've grouped into the drum bus, which has got a few different textures to it. So starting from the top, we've got the snare. So the snare, I'm using Addictive Drums 2, and I'm using the modern Soul R&B kit. So this is what it sounds like. We've got a rim shot, which is in the first one, which is just a steady rim shot that plays throughout with a little bit of variance to the velocity. And I texture it in with some snare fills, which again are all coming from the same kit. Gives it a more natural sound. And then I also use a little fill towards the end of each sort of section, which sounds like this. And that's from my Chill Lo-Fi Drums pack with Be Calm, another Lo-Fi girl producer. It's a nice way to transition in. So that's the sort of snare group. And on top of that, I'm cutting everything below about 4.8 kilohertz, just to give it a sort of darker, more muffled tone. And I bring some of the brightness out with different textures. I've also got another Addictive Drums patch, which has got Spaced Out and Portal. So in this one, I'm playing the sort of cymbals and rides, just to like add a little bit of ambience. Spaced Out reverb on there for some nice reverb heavy sounds. And we've also got some choppiness from the Portal patch, which is called Grainy Swells, I believe. Grain Swells. So that's a nice little texture that adds in with the snare and the kick. Also got a nice soft brush sample, which is giving a bit of texture to it. If you want some brushless samples, you can also check out my Chill Lo-Fi Drum pack for more of them. I've got a sample which is like a clock ticking, which I've used a lot on this project. I just like the width and texture that it adds to the snare. Also got Lex SL84, which I believe is a splice hi-hat loop. And another sound that I've acquired at some point, which is like a clicky top texture. Finally, we've got some like thudder sort of cinematic sounds in this. I can't actually remember where these were from, but you can get all sorts of sounds like this if you Google thudder effects. But yeah, that just adds a bit more sort of rises and dramatic thuds throughout the track. Then last up, just a nice simple bass line. So keeping it nice and simple, playing the same roots as the piano with a little bit of fills in there. This is going into my warm audio preamp and then into my interface with a little bit of saturation and a little bit of a top cut on there as well. So there you go, that is the track. I'm trying to keep these videos as short as possible and fill in as much interesting information as possible, so I hope this has not been too much or too little. Do let me know in the comments down below if you've got any feedback on these videos. I love to hear it and it really helps me develop what I make next. But yeah, please do stay tuned for the full album out on the 20th, and when it comes out, take a listen, see if there's any tracks that you want to hear more of, and I can break them more down as well. I've got a few more breakdowns of the album on the way, plus a special one as well, which I'll talk about soon. But for now, thank you for watching. Big shout out to District Kid for sponsoring the video. Check them out in the description down below, and I will catch you next time.